Oh yeah, five star LSU. I said they ain't ready for the LSU. No, they ain't ready for the LSU, huh? They ain't ready for the LSU. No, they ain't ready for the LSU.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Tigers Avenue for episode number 13. Episode number 13. We got previews for you for football and basketball. Got a few recaps. And we're also going to discuss some of the new hires by the LSU football staff. Let's go ahead and recap, Zach, the Auburn game here a little bit. The LSU Tigers fall for the first time in this season and lose their opening conference game to the Auburn Tigers 55-70. Zach, really the story of this game was the same as the rest. Defense played well. The offense did not. And we said in the last episode we needed to score 70 to 75 points to give us a shot in this game. Well, your defense held the Auburn Tigers, who average 81 points a game, to 70 points. So if you score from 70 to 75 points in this game, you really, put yourself in a position to win this game. There was a few dominant performances by Auburn, with Kessler almost a rebound away from a triple-double with 11 blocks on the night. Just really took the Tigers out of their offensive rhythm by eliminating the paint, because that is where the Tigers need to get the ball to be successful offensively, and he just eliminated that. So you see the Tigers shoot a lot of shots that felt like they were settle shots, and the Tigers can't live on the perimeter. They're just not a three-point team. So it really hurt the Tigers offensively to have such a dominant presence in the paint like that. The offense just has to be fixed, and the turnovers have to be fixed. They really hurt you in this game. And, of course, the loss of Brandon Murray really, I feel like, threw everything out of sync. All year long, we've been uniform with the same starting five, the same guys coming off the bench: Eric Gaines, Terry Eason, Alex Fudge, an 8-man rotation. And then we find out at game time that Brandon Murray isn't ready, and you got to start Eric Gaines. And I feel like that threw the whole game plan, the routine of what LSU goes through, just out of whack, and it hurt us on the offensive side of the ball because Brandon Murray is a little bit of a better shot maker. He protects the ball a little bit better than Eric Gaines, but it is what it is. The Tigers lose in a way that we really expected them to do so. I feel like our predictions were kind of spot on. Zach, if you would, give me your thoughts on the game and maybe some takeaways of the game as well.
Well, I don't think there's really too much to add to what you said. For the majority of the game, it was very frustrating to watch, but also very predictable. The defense continued to be very impressive, forcing a lot of turnovers. But on the flip side of the ball, the offense was also turning the ball over a lot, which was very frustrating to see. Now, the positive thing, I think, is you got to see Justice Williams for the first time. And he struggled early, but he really came on later in the game and actually brought the game to within 6 points late in the ball game. I think it was somewhere before the under 4 timeout, not long after the under 8 timeout. But he hit a big time three, brought the Tigers within 6, and they just weren't able to capitalize on that. It seemed like every time LSU got close, Auburn just, was able to hit a big shot, or Kessler came in and took over the ball game. And it was just really just the Tigers were never really able to just finally break through that brick wall. And you got to give them credit, though. They were resilient. twice they overcame a 17-point deficit and pulled within very close. So this team is capable of coming back. We've already seen that multiple times in this season, and it was really good to see that in a big time matchup against the SEC opponent on the road. They could have very easily shut down and gotten completely blown out of this ball game, but twice they came back from double digit deficits and made it a ball game. I think honestly, Reagan, this was probably your toughest test of the SEC. Like this was probably the biggest game, and it sucks that it was the first game. The only other game that might top it is on the road at Bama, and we'll see how that game goes. But Auburn is a really really good basketball team, and we're going to see that as the rest of the season progresses and as is the rest of SEC play progresses. Auburn's going to beat a lot of teams, and they're going to go deep in the SEC unless they just have some complete colossal just breakdown. But LSU fans, I don't think we need to be worried because that team was definitely one of the best teams we're going to play, if not the best team that LSU basketball is going to play this season. So, although it's hard to watch what we watched on Tuesday night, we got to look forward to tonight and the really big matchup against Kentucky because I think with this being a home game, everybody's going to be packing out the PMAC as the students and fans have been doing here recently with all the success of the men's and women's basketball teams, which also huge shout out to the women's basketball team. Since the last time we met, they have taken down Georgia and Texas A&M, two ranked teams in SEC play, and that was huge for them. Kim Mulkey is really really doing a fantastic job of leading this ladies basketball team, and so the PMAC's going to be packed out, and I hope they do pack it out for this huge matchup against Kentucky. And I have a lot of faith in that game. So although this was hard to swallow, I think it was a hard pill that needed to be swallowed. I think it is something that this team needed. They needed to be humbled and all those things that Will Wade had been saying and harping on. And a lot of the media were like, why is he saying this? We're undefeated. We are. They look fantastic, but his mindset has always been focusing on the problems, on the areas that needed to be fixed, because he knew when we got to this moment in SEC play, it was going to cost him. And it did. And now everything that he's been saying has come to light, and this team can see that and recognize that. And hopefully they will take the initiative, and I know they will. I know they are, but hopefully they will take the initiative to press forward from this and really focus on fixing the problems that need to be fixed. The turnovers, the shooting, all those things.
Yeah, I gotta agree. I mean, I think this could actually be a really good thing for the Tigers basketball team. A gut punch may be exactly what they needed. A reality check is maybe exactly what they needed. Now they have game film to say, here it is. This is how it affected the game. This is the moment. Will Wade is going to pick all that apart, and we know how detailed oriented he is. And I promise you, he is probably picking that game film apart, looking at everything, trying to correct those problems. But yes, tonight is another big matchup. Number 16 Kentucky is coming into the PMAC. It's a special night as well. They will be revealing the court as Dale Brown Court in honor of Coach Dale Brown and all his success that he had with the Tigers basketball team. So tip of the cap to him and Dale Brown. Let's preview this game a little bit, Zach, here. ESPN Power Index has LSU as a 60-40 favorite in this game, and the betting line is really, really close, giving LSU a 1-point favorite. Yeah, I like that. Zach did get a signed basketball from Dale Brown. But so I think this is going to be another close game. But I actually like the Tigers in this game. Kentucky is a good team. There's no question about that. You're going to have to bring your A game again, but they are not the scoring machine that is Auburn. They are battle tested. I mean, they've played some pretty big games early on in non-conference, but I like LSU at home. I mean, what we have seen the Tigers do in the PMAC, offensively specifically, has been far better in other games. When we were in neutral sites, when we were at Auburn, I mean, we clearly struggled away from home. So I really like the offense to do better in this game, to complement the excellent defense. And when you don't have as much as an elite offense as Auburn, and your defense is what it is in LSU, and then you're at home, so you're probably going to shoot better this game. You're going to be more comfortable. You're going to have the home crowd advantage behind you. I like the Tigers in this ball game to win in a close one tonight in the PMAC. Zach, what do you think about it?
Yeah, Reagan. I have to agree with you. I think this is a game that LSU definitely can win with the home advantage, the home court advantage. This is going to be a tight ball game, I believe. I think it's going to be, kind of similar to Auburn. I think it's going to be a high 60s, low 70s type game. And right now, Kentucky is averaging around 84 points per game. We got to believe that LSU's defense, in the same way they have all season and in the same way they did last Tuesday against Auburn, that they're going to hold Kentucky below that average. Right now, Vegas thinks LSU has a 1 point favorite. So it's really just a coin flip. And that's including with home court advantage. So technically, Vegas thinks this might actually lean towards Kentucky. The ESPN Power Index, though, is a completely different ballgame because ESPN Power Index has LSU at a 60.5% chance to win this game. So the system there definitely favors LSU mightily. I gotta believe that LSU is going to win this game. Tari Eason and X have had some more time to heal. We haven't heard anything on Brandon Murray, but I gotta believe he's going to be back this game. I think it was a minor injury he was dealing with, or else we would have heard more about it. But I gotta believe it's a minor injury that he's dealing with, so he's probably going to be back. I think getting Justice Williams in last game is going to help even more with depth. It's also talked about that Sharif is going to return. It actually was confirmed by him on his Twitter after the Auburn game last week that he is good to go. So we might potentially see Sharif come in and get some minutes for this team. And I think that's going to be huge because you are going to need rebounds in this game and offensive rebounds in this game. And that's exactly what Sharif is meant for this team. He's not meant to come in and put up a whole bunch of points and be this amazing scorer. We don't need to compare him to his dad because that's not who this guy is, right? Sharif is a guy that is going to come in. He's going to take some minutes and he is going to get some rebounds. He's going to get some putbacks for you, and he's going to take some fouls that otherwise would be going towards starters and key bench players. So I think having Justice Williams, I think having Sharif are also going to play a major role in this game, and I hope that they do. So I think LSU has the slight advantage in this game. I'm going to pick LSU to win, but this really could go either way. It's a coin flip.
Absolutely. I got to agree with you. I like the Tigers here at home in the PMAC on the special night for Dale Brown. Yeah, you mentioned Sharif O'Neal. That is a huge get, specifically for this game with the role he's going to play for rebounding because Oscar Tshwiba, I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm not sure how you pronounce it, so I probably just completely botched that. So forgive me, but he averages 15 rebounds a game. He averages a double-double, 15 points, 15 rebounds a game. There was a few games ago he rebounded 28 balls. Like that's just unheard of. 28 rebounds in the game.
Crazy.
So we got to attack the glass this game. So we're going to see how that plays out, but I'm excited to see how it plays out. I like the Tigers tonight in the PMAC. Let's flip over here now to football. There's going to be another game tonight following the basketball game, and that is the Fighting LSU Tigers on the football field against Kansas State Wildcats in Houston for the Texas Bowl.
Which, by the way, the Kentucky game tonight starts at 6 p.m. Central on ESPN, and then the football game tonight against Kansas State starts at 8 p.m. on ESPN. So literally, you can just turn on ESPN around 6 o'clock, watch your basketball team, and then as soon as that game ends, the football team is going to start.
Yeah, it's gonna be. I'm excited for it because it's just a lot of LSU sports all at one time that we're gonna get to watch. So I'm pumped
Heck yeah, I
for it.
love it.
I love games back to back there like that. So LSU versus the Kansas State Wildcats. Kansas State is 7-5 on the year. LSU, of course, is 6-6. LSU gets a slight nod in the ESPN Power Index, 54% chance to win. Now, the point spread has changed drastically since the opening line. The opening line actually was a 2.5 point favorite to LSU. Now, with I think the realization of where LSU's roster stands, the point spread has swung like 10 points to 7 point favorite now for Kansas State. And this is a major topic when we're speaking about this game is LSU's roster. They are thin as it gets. They are just below 40 scholarship players for this game. And so we need to avoid injuries at all costs during this game, stay healthy. And the biggest question mark of the entire game is who's playing quarterback. We did get a release of a depth chart earlier this week, and it did list Garrett Nussmeier on that depth chart. The whole thing was would he play this game and burn his red shirt? Would they apply for a waiver to try to keep him his red shirt and still play, and all of this stuff, and nobody knows the answer to that. Whether he's been awarded this waiver, whether he's not been awarded this waiver, nobody knows. And so the other option was, well, you got Matt O'Dowd, the walk-on quarterback, or you got Jontre Kirkland, who is playing receiver for you but played quarterback all his high school career. Well, Matt O'Dowd is on crutches now. So you got Nussmeier and you got Jontre Kirkland. And you got Tavion Falk, but that's dire emergency situation. So I don't know who's going to start for this game. I got to believe with Nussmeier being listed on the roster depth chart, the way that the Wake Forest Rutgers game was handled, that how hard they tried to get the Rutgers into that game to make sure that bowl game was played. I gotta believe the NCAA also looks at the situation with LSU and the way the roster, has fallen apart. It feels like here at the end of the season that they allowed this waiver to go through so that this bowl game was worth watching. Zach, you can give me your thoughts on that, but I got to think, Matt, that Garrett Nussmeier is getting the start here. What do you think about this game? What's your prediction? And then I'll give you mine.
Man, this is a hard one really to take because there's just so much that is happening right here with this ball game and with LSU's roster that is just all over the place, and you really just have no clue what to expect. I mean, you can definitely expect to see a lot of guys that you have never heard of their name before, and a lot of guys that are way down on the depth chart. Look, Damone Clark has opted out. Neil Farrell Jr. has opted out. Ty Davis Price has opted out. He's getting ready and preparing himself for the NFL draft, just as those other guys are. Of course, you had Max Johnson transfer. You had Trey Palmer transfer. You had all these other transfers. Elias Ricks transfer. Cordell Flott's not going to be playing in the ball game. I believe Jay Ward is not going to be playing in the ball game. No, I think he is. He was listed on the depth chart.
Dwight McLaughlin's not.
Dwight McLaughlin is the guy I was thinking of. So you're really, really thin at cornerback. So, man, this is going to be a really tough one to watch, but it's going to be interesting. It's definitely going to be an interesting game to watch, and certainly just going to be curious to see how LSU schemes up offense. I can expect the defense to continue to be pretty good. Obviously, the passing game is going to be a concern with LSU so thin in the secondary, but I can expect us to stop the run with Mason Smith's going to be there, Jacoby and Guillory is going to be there. Of course, B.J. Ojulari is going to be there. You're going to have Mike Jones in at linebacker playing there. So a lot of guys that have played meaningful minutes are going to be on that first and second level of the defense. So we have to worry about the third level in the secondary. On offense, though, it was already bad with your great starters and the very talented starters. And now you have no clue who you turn to a quarterback. I agree with you. I think it's going to be Garrett Nussmeier. Brad Davis has been keeping that hush hush, but with them listing him on the depth chart and with John Trey Kirkland, there hasn't been anything said, but it looks to me, and I'm not breaking the news here, but it looks to me like he is going to be ineligible for this game. He's already had ineligibility problems at the beginning of the season, and then he was finally able to play a little bit near the end of the season. But now you're having to come into a next semester, and from your grades this semester, you're having to worry about eligibility there. And I think based on John Trey Kirkland's tweet yesterday, he tweeted that it was Garrett Nussmeier's time to shine, and so he just mentioned Garrett Nussmeier, and so you got to believe that with him doing that, either Garrett Nussmeier is playing and John Trey Kirkland is not, or Garrett's just going to get the start over John Trey Kirkland, and John Trey Kirkland will still be available, but John Trey was not on the depth chart. So that's the reason I believe that John Trey is not going to be in this game. I know a lot of people have speculated that John Trey Kirkland is going to be the quarterback. We on the Jordy Culotta show, B.J. Ojulari mentioned John Trey getting snaps. Kayshon Boutte mentioned that he had been told that John Trey was going to be the starter, but it seems like from what I've seen and from the other things I've heard, that it's going to be Garrett Nussmeier, especially with Brad Davis keeping it on the hush-hush. Because you already know about Matt O'Dowd. You already know about John Trey Kirkland, and Kansas State was already preparing for that. So why would you be like, oh, we're going to keep it hush-hush? I think it's going to be Garrett Nussmeier. So I think that's a positive. At running back, you're still going to have Corey Kiner. Armani Goodwin's a question mark, but you're going to have Corey Connor, you're going to have Trevontae Bradford, and then of course you're going to have the walk-on Josh Williams. So, you're going to be thin there no matter what. So it's going to be a really interesting ball game to watch for sure, Reagan. But to be honest with you, I don't think LSU is going to be able to score. Maybe they'll score on some crazy magic plays that Garrett Nussmeier drums up like he did in the Arkansas game. But I predict this to be a very low scoring ball game. I think it's going to come down to the defense that can get the most stops. And I don't mean that in a way to say that the offenses are going to be high powered. It's just going to come down to which defense gets the one extra stop, because they're really going to stop them. I think these defenses are going to be the key to this ball game. They're going to get a lot of stops. So which defense is going to get that one extra stop, right? This literally could be a 7-10, 17-14 type ball game. I think, in my opinion. But to be honest, I got to think Kansas State's going to win this ball game. They do not have the roster problems that LSU has. There's a lot less to worry about on the Kansas State side of the ball. And there is a lot of things that LSU is going to have to deal with. I mean, if you lose whoever it is at quarterback, if you lose that guy at quarterback, I mean, dude, what do you do? Like, I don't know what you just run Wildcat the entire game. I don't know. So this game it's interesting, but it's definitely worth watching because I'm curious to see how Brad Davis has prepared for this, knowing that he only has 39 players on the roster.
So, aside from all the roster here, we've discussed that the roster has issues, right? That's a big topic here. I want to talk about the game itself. Kansas State very clearly, very obviously is a running team, a rushing offense, heavy. Their quarterback has thrown 9 touchdowns the entire season. 9. And he's only thrown for about 1,800 yards, which isn't terrible, but that's still a lot less than normal throughout an entire season. However, their running back, Deuce Vaughn, has a 1,200 yard season working, and he's got 15 touchdowns. So I think this bodes well for LSU because I think the defensive linemen that we have in this game can stop the run enough. And because their passing game isn't quite there, that helps us out on the back end of the defense where we're playing guys who don't have as much experience, they're young, whatever that may be. Because if you look at their top receiver on the year, Phillip Brooks has 474 yards and 2 touchdowns. Kayshon Boutte, who ain't played since the Kentucky game, has 509 yards and 9 touchdowns. So if that gives you any indication of their passing game, the quarterback has 9 touchdowns. Their leading receiver has 2 touchdowns. But you look at their running back, and he's got 15. So this bodes well for LSU and the fact that you got guys on the line who have experience, who started and who've been in meaningful games, in important games, and have played a lot. So that's going to be I think our defense against their offense is going to be advantage LSU. Now, like we've discussed with offense, I really have no clue what to expect. We know Garrett Nussmeier is a gunslinger, and he can sling the ball. And I don't think receiver is much of a concern. Is too much of a concern in this game. I mean, you're going to have Malik Neighbors, Jack Besh, Jaray Jenkins, who else? Brian Thomas Jr. So there's going to be guys that are good enough to get open. And I think Corey Connor is good enough to be the guy who takes the most handoffs in this game. Like, I think he can do just fine. But with Jake Peets making the play calls, with all this kind of pieced together, like, it just, you don't know what to expect. I mean, we saw what the offense was with Max Johnson and all those receivers, and it was just lackluster and sloppy and slow and lethargic and all of those adjectives that are negative about this offense.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we can expect much more when you put Garrett Nussmeier in. And it goes back to the Arkansas game that we talked about. I don't think it mattered whether Max Johnson or whether Garrett Nussmeier was in the game because Jake Peets couldn't scheme and game plan good enough to score enough points to win games. It was such a
Yeah.
pathetic offense. It was like it doesn't matter who's playing quarterback, it feels like. So
Like LSU
hopefully,
fans, don't forget Jake Peets is still the offensive coordinator right
Yeah,
now.
like he's the offensive coordinator for this game. So we're gonna find out. We're gonna find out what this is about tonight. It's gonna be interesting, that's for sure. I hope for Brad Davis and for the LSU Tigers, of course, that we win this game. But I just don't see LSU with the way this roster is, the way like it feels like it's just been puzzle pieced together. It feels like there's just like a few stitches holding the thing together, right? It feels like anything could just make it fall through
Oh, they're
and you
coming
can't
apart
even
right
play this
now.
game. Yeah, it's so, and then you look at Kansas State and there's not much roster attrition. They've got their starting guys. I got to take Kansas State in a close ball game here. As much as I want the Tigers to win, I think Kansas State, with guys who've played all year long, they're not going through a coaching change. All of these factors, I got to take Kansas State. As much as I want LSU to keep that streak going of winning records, um, it just is what it is. With coaching changes, this is what tends to happen. And then when you have guys who are academically ineligible, transfers, injuries, it doesn't help. So this game is going to be interesting, to say the least. I have no idea what to expect, but I hope the Tigers come out with the W. So continuing to talk about football here a little bit, Zach, the staff is almost complete. LSU has hired a few more staff positions, three, namely being, of course, the offensive coordinator, Mike Denbrock, quarterback coach, Jake Sloan, and defensive line coach and run game coordinator, Jamar Kane. All three of these guys, just a little background here. Of course, Denbrock was Cincinnati's offensive coordinator the past few seasons. And, I mean, he just came out of a playoff game. I understand that they didn't perform, the way everybody, I guess Cincinnati fans would have wanted them to, but you're playing Alabama and you're way outmatched when you're Cincinnati. He really, in that game, I think, called a great game. There was open receivers. There were wide open receivers, and they either dropped balls or the ball got batted at the line or Desmond Ritter didn't hit the guy. So I liked the play calling in that game. It just wasn't really executed that well when you're so athletically outmatched. Jake Sloan, the story on him is he is a young, uh, smart, offensive minded guy who knows Louisiana, who has Louisiana ties, and has recruited the Louisiana Baton Rouge area for Louisiana Tech. He was Louisiana Tech's offensive coordinator. So you add another piece to the staff that can recruit those areas, who know those areas, who know those high school coaches. And Jamar Kane is the defensive line coach. He was the defensive line coach at Oklahoma. It was expected that he was going to be taking a job at USC with Lincoln Riley. Instead, he has joined Brian Kelly's new staff. Zach, give me your thoughts on these hires. What do you think about it? Positive, negatives?
Yeah, I like the hires. I really like Denbrock. I think he doesn't get as much credit as he should for what Cincinnati did in the Alabama game. As you mentioned, Alabama just obviously outsized them. They outmatched them. They out athleted them just in every aspect of the ball game. It felt like Alabama was just playing with their food, and really they just completely dominated that game. But Mike Denbrock, as you said, I think he called a great game. And so I'm really looking forward to him. And if you go back and if you look at Brian Kelly's tenure, the best offenses that he had was when Mike Denbrock was his OC. And so now he brings the best offensive mind that he had while he's been a head coach. He brings that to LSU. Jake Sloan, I think the most important thing is, he knows the area. He can recruit Louisiana. That's really, really big. He has really, I think, done a fantastic job at putting together, honestly, in my opinion, one of the best staffs that we have seen in the past few years. I mean, other than the last time that Nick Saban was head coaching at LSU and the staff that he had when he had Dooley and Muschamp and Fit Jimbo Fisher and all those guys that were just absolute really, really good football minds at their positions. And of course, a lot of those guys ended up going on to be head coaches elsewhere. I think this is that type of staff. I really do. And obviously, that's going to play out. We're going to see that play out in the next coming years. But I like the hires. I'm really impressed with them. LSU fans, don't be discouraged with Denbrock based on one game that you watched. Like, compare, just look at the play calling. Look at the play calling. Um, Reagan, do you remember the play where they faked the wide receiver screen and they had the running back wide open and they weren't able to complete that play? Like, what if they complete that? What if they hit the slant earlier in the ball game on their first drive? There's so many different scenarios that you can mention. Like, the play calling was there, but now take that play calling and put LSU athletes in that scheme. And what's it going to look like? Like, what's that scheme going to look like when you got Kayshon Boutte, Jack Besh, Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas, and then either, Miles Brennan, um, Garrett Nussmeyer, Walker Howard, like, you name it. Like, just put those athletes in that system and let's wait and see what that looks like before we begin to judge and say, well, against Alabama, they put up 6 points. And well, yeah, it's Cincinnati versus Alabama, as we've talked about. So I really like the hires. I'm encouraged by them, but obviously with all hires, it's a wait and see.
Yeah, and I mean, let's get real here. Yeah, Cincinnati scored 6 points, and Denbrock was the OC against Alabama. Jake Peets and DJ Mangus scored 14 points in Tuscaloosa this year. I think Denbrock, with the receivers and the type of talent we have at LSU, can do a lot better. This is going to be the best roster, the best talented players that Brian Kelly and Denbrock have ever seen. I mean, they're going to look at guys like Kayshon Boutte and just be like, jaw hits the floor, round one pick type of player next year. So I really like the way Kelly has put this staff together. People were kind of worried, Matt House, he's not as young. Well, Denbrock, he's not as young, but like I feel like he's got this great two groups within the staff. It's like there's experience and yes, there's some age, and then there's youthfulness and
With age comes
creativeness.
wisdom.
Right. So you have Denbrock and Matt House, and then you turn and you got like young, creative
Clint,
minds, good recruiting, and then guys who've experience and have wisdom within the game. So this staff, I think, can come together and gel really well with the roster that LSU is going to put on the field
I
next
agree.
year. And I'm excited to see how it all comes together. The last hire that is expected to be made is Cortez Hankton. He is Georgia's wide receiver coach right now. I mean, I'm not reporting this by any means, but it is expected that whenever the championship game is over, either the next day or within the next few days of the championship game being played, that Cortez Hankton will be announced as LSU's next receiver coach. And I got to think he's also going to be passing game coordinator as well, as we haven't seen someone get that title yet within the hires. And of course, the guy you're going to hire to work with your receivers, you most likely want him to be your passing game coordinator. So I'm excited. If we land Cortez Hankton, I mean, Georgia's always had great receivers as well. I mean, right now they got Jermaine Burton and George Pickens, and so I'm excited about what Brian Kelly has put together here, and Brian Kelly himself, I'm super pumped about that. He's going to bring organization and stability and all the things that Ed Orgeron was not to this staff, to this program. And boy, what a breath of fresh air it is to have somebody with some stateliness about him, some professionalism, organization, some, he has put an entire staff together, and it feels like he hasn't had to go and ask Joe Brady, hey, who should I hire? Or go ask Dave Aranda, who should I hire? You know what I mean? Like, he has the brains enough to go out and evaluate and have a search done and pick the coaches he wants. And that really excites me from a head coaching standpoint with him, which that's what you expected out of Brian Kelly with his resume, with his tenure, and who Brian Kelly is. Zach, do you have any more comments on the staff and what you'd like to see?
No, man, I'm excited about next year. It feels like next year can't get here soon enough with all the hype around this team and still all the talent. And guess what? Hey, we still have a lot to do in this recruiting class. We've got a lot of transfers that LSU is going to bring in. We got some high schoolers from the 22 class that we are awaiting to see their decisions. Jacoby Matthews, of course, Trevante Citizen. I mean, a lot of those guys that LSU is in the mix on. We are waiting to see the announcement of the schools they are going to go to. And a lot of those guys are heavy LSU lean. Of course, also the transfer portal. Some big names have entered the transfer portal. Some big names have entered the transfer portal from Notre Dame, from other top Power 5 schools that LSU could be in the mix for. So it's really exciting, and I'm just looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And I wouldn't be surprised if a few Notre Dame players made their way down to Baton Rouge either. There's been 3 enter their name here recently. You had an offensive lineman, a DB, and a linebacker all enter their name in the portal at Notre Dame. And you got to think Brian Kelly's going to be picking up the phone and calling them.
Interestingly enough, that's where you need players, those 3 positions.
Absolutely. So it's going to be a fun time to see Kelly put this staff together, to put this recruiting class together, and we can get ready and look forward to the next season. Let's put a lid on this episode. Appreciate you always supporting us and listening. Go follow us on Twitter, Tigers Avenue Pod, at Tigers Avenue Pod. And we'll see you next time in episode 14 in the Tigers Avenue. See you later. Peace.
LSU Tigers. Who that 5-star?